I've been wanting to film this video for quite a while now. I've been putting it off here and there, but today is finally the day I sit down and I make this video. So here it is, the Inheritance Games review. Also, hi, if you're new here, I'm Ayesha from a page of Ayesha. This is my booktube channel and basically put out my bookish thoughts. So this series is basically what I read in June. Consider this as your wrap-up, but it's probably the biggest part of June, and that is The Inheritance Games by Jennifer Lynn Barnes. If you guys don't know anything about this series, this is a YA mystery thriller series. This is a trilogy. It comprises of 3 books: The Inheritance Games, The Hawthorne Legacy, and The Final Gambit. I believe it has a 4th book coming out, but I'm not really sure if it's the continuation of the series. So first, I want to have like a quick message for people who haven't read the series, and if this is the only thing that you take out of this video, I want this to be it. This series is more like fast-paced and a series that would get you out of your reading slump more than it is like detailed, or if you're going for a series that you think is going to be detailed, has a lot of complexity, and it's going to blow you away, I have to say that this series is not for you, because honestly, when I went into the series, the amount of hype that this book has, it may be misleading to some people as like it's going to be a really complex series. Don't get me wrong, the mystery part is amazing, but would definitely recommend this series to people who are getting into reading YA or people who haven't been reading for a while. Great for reading slumps. And this next point basically explains the last one, but this is super fast-paced. It has, the thing that I really liked about the series is that it has really short chapters. I mean, the amount of pages in a chapter or 2 will be like 2 to 3 pages. Maybe in the last book, the chapters do increase like 4 to 5 pages, but it's just a book that you can fly through, a series that you can fly through and have an amazing time reading it. Yeah, this pretty much covers it. It has a really fun part on the mystery. It has pretty decent characters. I would say Avery as a main character is a pretty decent character. I really liked her as a main character. There are a lot of characters, but I really like the way Jennifer Lynn Barnes makes the series really simple. And we do get a lot of characters, a lot of families inside mystery and stuff, but I like it that it doesn't get confusing, because sometimes in books, when you have loads of characters, it does get confusing, but this book was again very easy to read and really fast-paced without the complicated drama. I would say there are a lot of characters involved in this series, but doesn't get confusing. But yeah, this is like a binge-worthy series. You can read it, and if you're not that much into reading, I would say go ahead and pick the series out. This series may just be your favorite. So now let's move on to my detailed thoughts and my specific negative points and my positive points for this series. Okay, so first let's talk about how I really felt about going into this book. For some reason I thought this was fantasy, but it turned out to be a thriller mystery. The funny part was that when I was picking up the first book, I was kind of waiting for the fantasy element to come into it, but again, it was just mystery. Okay, so let's talk about my expectations. I was recommended this by my sister, and I wanted this to be fast-paced and just dive back into reading again, because again, I hadn't read for quite a long time, and I want something quick and fun to read. Did it deliver? Yes, I would say it delivered. There were some things that I were anticipating this book to be a bit more, because again, the hype around this book was huge, and I thought this book series was going to be like absolutely mind-blowing, but I wouldn't say it was the best series I ever read, but it just hit the perfect spot. So did this series deliver? Yes, I did think that it delivered on the pacing, on the characters, and on the plot-wise. Considering the hype, I wouldn't say that this is the best series ever that I had ever read, but I feel like it just hit the spot. I get the hype of this, but overall, the series was just okay-ish for me. Yeah, it just really was the perfect series at the perfect time. That is also a really big factor for me, really liking the series. The short chapters was really clicking in, was really easy to read, a really nice impression of the series in total. First book in a trilogy wise, it was awesome. I really liked some of the characteristics in this one that we didn't see in the last 2 ones. House, the characteristics of the house, you know, those tiny little puzzles, those rooms. I felt like we got to see that more on the pages than a lot of other things that we got in the other 2 books. But setting-wise, this book was the best out of the 2. It had these amazing characteristics that I really liked, and execution-wise, awesome. Okay, so the next book, The Hawthorne Legacy. So looking back, I think I enjoyed this book the most out of the three. Maybe because it was the most mystery-packed book from all of these. Don't get me wrong, the third book had amazing stuff as well, but I just felt like the way the mystery was going in this book was definitely better. Okay, so this book really delves deeper into the mystery and kind of made us realize that this mystery is greater than we thought. There's so many threads going on. We're connecting a few things, and then those things that we just connected move into these bigger problems. Okay, so here's the thing about this one and the first one. The first one was more setting based and introduction for the characters. I love that, but this book really focused on the mystery part and was fun. Wouldn't say that the mystery was dull in any way. I feel like for some readers, this mystery might at times feel too stretched out. I mean, why do you have to stretch out the mystery so much, make so many complicated threads? But I personally really enjoyed that while reading this book. I felt like I didn't feel bored in terms of the mystery, nor in terms of the character development. Really like Avery. I have some awesome characters that I really loved, but we'll talk about that later. Okay, so the last book, The Final Gambit. I have some thoughts on this one. I feel like this one was the least best book out of all of them, in my opinion. Again, I just felt like this was a tiny bit disappointing. The first half was awesome. I loved it. I loved how the mystery was going. I loved every single thing of it. The middle and the last big part kind of got a bit too stretched out, and the last was too simple for me. Again, I kind of wanted it to have like this grand finale, but it just didn't have it. The ending, again, wouldn't say it was necessarily bad, so I totally get why it ended, and I'm absolutely satisfied with it. So this was the final book in the trilogy. The fourth book, I don't know, I feel like it does have potential to kind of grow its story, but at the same time it was wrapped up in the third one, so I'm not basically sure what the fourth book will bring, but we'll definitely check that book out. Moving on to characteristics specifically that I liked of the series and that I didn't like of the series. They're just random things that I think are worth mentioning and just give you an idea of people who have read the series. Not spoilers in any way. First thing is that I love the pacing, I love the short chapters. I feel like I said this before, just going through them again because these are just definitely worth putting out. I feel like it was a fun mystery to go into. I wouldn't say that the mystery disappointed me in any turns because by the end of the first book, I definitely felt like this mystery does have some potential, and I wouldn't say it's the most complex mystery ever, but mystery-wise, I definitely was engaged, and it was definitely fun to go into. Last book had this amazing cliffhanger. I feel like out of all the books, the ending of the last book was awesome. The characters that I feel like are worth mentioning in this section is my favorite character out of all of them was probably Xander. I feel like who doesn't love him? He had this perfect humor at perfect times in the book when I felt like the book was kind of getting dry. Like in the middle point, wouldn't say that it gets dull and it gets hard to pick up, but at some part it did feel repetitive, so Xander was just right on the spot, always having his humor on the go, and I definitely just enjoyed every time he was on the page. Just want to put out there, more than the Avery, Jameson, Grayson thing, I was so more into the Nash and Libby. Love the two characters. I love their, I just felt like we didn't get more of them, and I definitely want to get more of them, especially Nash. I felt like he was such an amazing character. Xander and Nash are my favorite character out of all of the Hawthorne brothers. But yeah, definitely had a fun time reading those. So on to the negative points. I'm just going to quickly mention them. These were parts that I did feel like would need some improvement, and as I said, this wasn't the best series ever, so it definitely did have some of the things that I was expecting it to deliver, but it just didn't. But no ways, I hated the series. I absolutely enjoyed my time going through it. Okay, so this is the thing that I mentioned in the book 3, but the ending, again, was a bit disappointment. This is one of the things that I didn't like of the series. I wanted things to go in a certain way, but it just didn't. And yeah, another thing about this is sometimes it just got repetitive. Wouldn't say that it was repetitive the entire time. The mystery got repetitive, got boring. Wouldn't say that, but at some points I definitely feel like they were repeating the same thing over and over again, and they were going to this loophole. I feel like it was meant to do this, but I honestly was kind of getting frustrated because I did kind of have the outcome in mind. Again, there were so many things that I probably didn't predict. but sometimes things would get repetitive, and sometimes things were kind of unnecessary. Like they would pull up these strings in mysteries and they would have absolutely no impact, and they would waste like 20 pages of working on it. It had no impact, and yeah, those are what kind of things I feel like readers might feel disappointing. And yeah, another point is that the whole Jameson Grayson thing, I honestly wasn't invested in any of them. Love Xander, love Nash, love Libby. I would say I did choose sides a bit, but again, I just didn't have such strong attachment to these characters. Okay, so quick rating of all of the 3 books. The first book I rated around 3.75 stars, really close to 4. First book for its setting, that was one of my favorite parts. I wish the second 2 books had that, but they just didn't have that component. But overall, it was a great starter, 3.75 stars. Second book was my favorite book out of the entire series, which I rated 4 stars. The third book was a tiny bit of disappointment, so that's like 3 stars, but overall I would rate this entire series a solid 4 stars, not a 5 stars. It wasn't the best series I've ever read. A few more series that I would prefer over this one 1,000 more times. So this part specifically is for spoilers only, and just things that I feel like I have to mention before I move towards the ending of this video. I'll have the timestamps on the screen, the spoiler warning. Just keep in mind this is spoilers, and I wouldn't recommend it to people who haven't read the series, so just skip this part, move on to the ending. So the first book, it had definitely a lot of new concepts in it, and I definitely enjoyed my time reading it, but I have to say the whole ending part, I mean the entire kind of mystery that we're following into the first book. As I said, the mystery wasn't my favorite part in the first book. The setting probably was in the introduction, but the entire thing that it did was just for Jameson, all the Hawthorne brothers, to come into this one room and kind of have this concept of the boys coming back together. I mean, that could have been done. They all had to come in this room, this undertown room. I'm not remembering this as clearly because this again was in the starting of June and now it's like July. But the coming into the room, all of the 4 Hawthorne brothers and all that mystery behind it was just a bit unnecessary. I mean, we didn't have to go all through that just for the main point to be like for all the brothers to kind of come together. After going all through that was definitely wouldn't say disappointing, but would be unnecessary. It was an amazing book on the basis of setting. Now on to the second book plot. The first book did leave on a cliffhanger, like find Toby. I love that. I just love this whole Toby thing I've been following in the second book. That was pretty much the entire goal of the second one. I love that in the first book they had this reveal of Harry being Toby and this person who used to play chess with. I feel like that really put me on the edge of my seat, and that made me really pick up the second book. And second book again followed Avery's background, her mother's more info, her mother's background. Okay, so the last book, these spoilers for, I would like the second book. I don't have that much of things. I definitely agree with what happened to most of the things in the second book, but now on to the third book spoilers. I loved the first half of it. I liked when Evelyn arrived in the scene, but she obviously got annoying. I felt like that was the point of Evelyn, to get us annoyed and stuff. But the ultimate goal of Evelyn appearing onto the scene wasn't as mind-blowing. And again, in the last page, all that Vincent Blake thing was okay, but it wasn't like the best ending I would prefer. And that whole chess scene at the end was also awesome. I feel like it was logical. Again, I kind of expected a bit more, but yeah. We're watching me previous and haven't read the series itself, it's safe for you to go on now. This could be an interesting segment of the video in which I add a bunch of books in my TBR, which is probably not the wisest thing to do, but I thought this would be fun. So here are books similar to the Inheritance Games as per Goodreads recommends me, but these series are definitely compared to the Inheritance Games. I feel like they will be logical picks to add in my TBR and books that I am similar to Inheritance Games that I am willing to read. First one is Truly Devious series. I feel like it would be an interesting series, and a lot of people have compared Inheritance Games to Truly Devious, so this would definitely be on my TBR. Okay, so the next series I'm probably the most excited for. is A Good Girl's Guide to Murder. I wouldn't say that this is exactly how Inheritance Games, but it does get recommended if you read Inheritance Game. I mean, it's mystery, it's YA, and I feel like it just hits the spot. Heard a lot of good reviews for this one. I do have it on my shelf, so this is a series that I think would be worth picking up. Yeah, that was my review for the Inheritance Games. I hope that this review helped you determine whether you want to pick up the series, what you may be expecting, and just basically my thoughts on it. It did have a spoiler section in it, but I felt like the most of it was spoiler free. Yeah, I just hope for the people who want to read the series, give you a good idea of whether to pick up or not, and for people who have read the series, I just hope that this video was entertaining for y'all, and definitely put your thoughts down in the comments below after a spoiler chat. Again, if you have any book recommendation, feel free to put that in the comments down below. I will meet you guys in